Hi everyone, it's Andrea over at Sewspire.com, and today we are going to begin sewing the exterior of the Autumn Tote. If you are just joining us, you will want to watch last Tuesday's video in which I go over all of the pattern pieces and show you how to get those prepped. Today I am not going to be providing any pattern measurements because we went through that last week, and all of that information is also contained in the optional PDF tutorial, which I will link to down in the notes. So I'm really excited to get started sewing, so we're just going to jump right in. If you have any questions, be sure to check the notes. And as mentioned, review the first week's tutorial in this project. All right, so shall we get started? Okay, as mentioned, we are going to be crafting the exterior of the Autumn Tote. So I have pre-crafted one of those two panels so you can have a preview of what this is going to look like. In the PDF, I refer to this as the top panel, this is the mid panel, and this is the base panel. So the base is going to be where you install the feet, and that's where the bag will sit, right? And this completed panel is backed with a like-sized piece of Soft and Stable by Annie's. And that is like a 1/4 inch foam. If you do not have the foam, then you can use your interfacing of choice. And just remember, the interfacing is what offers the bag its stability. So with a tote this big, if you did not have interfacing to offer its structure, you could let the contents offer the tote its structure. It's just really is a matter of preference, so please feel free to use the materials that you actually have on hand, okay? So this is what I'm going to walk you through. We're going to craft the second panel, and then we're going to go ahead and assemble our straps as well. So I have one of those prepped for you. And this strap is unique in that it has the faux leather accent there, and then rivets as additional detail as well for that strap. So that's what we're going to accomplish today. In addition, I'm going to embellish my Autumn Tote with one of these little handmade tags, which I purchased from Sallie Tomato, and I do have a discount link for you down in the notes. If you'd like to save $10 on your purchase with Sallie Tomato, please feel free to use that code. Following the instructions or the PDF that is optional for this project, I am going to position that mid panel right sides facing on the top panel, which is backed with the Pillon 808. And then using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, I am going to stitch down that right hand edge and join those two pieces of material. So when that's joined, that's what it looks like on the front, and that's what it looks like on the back. For this project, you're going to want both seams laying towards that vegan leather or towards the base. After we back this with the foam, we are going to top stitch those seams down, and that additional reinforcement there of the seam allows those stitches to pop nice. So keep that in mind. Now, before we can attach the base, we're going to want to install the optional bag feet on that panel, and it's much easier to install your bag feet on the base before you attach it, because then you can measure and get everything nice and tidy. Okay, so in the pattern I specified that you're going to install the bag feet at center on the base panel, 1.5 inches in from each side. And so I like to take a Sharpie marker and just put a little dot at the point where I'm going to punch the hole for that. And I'm using my KAM Press here, and then I just position that up on there with the hole punch attachment installed, and then press down. I have already punched that hole for us, so then all I have to do is install my purse feet and then install the backing on that. And normally I would work with a little additional piece of interfacing. These particular purse feet, also from Sallie Tomato, have really long prongs on them, and that allows you to get a nice flush fit with these. So I'm very happy with them, just using them as is. So now I have my base panel prepped, and I can bring back over that two-way panel that we just prepared. And then for this part, it's going to be imperative that you center this base panel on that mid panel, approximately 2 3/4 inches from each end of this. So 2 3/4 inches here and 2 3/4 inches there, because this is what's going to give the bag its depth. And so once you get that positioned on there, go ahead and clip that in place. And then using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, we are going to stitch just across that base panel to join that to the mid panel. And if you have the original PDF, I had a line in there that said try to press those seams open. Disregard that. I'm going to edit that, and I will deliver the revised tutorial to anyone who purchased one or received one as a patron. We want all of those seams to be folded over and facing the base of the bag. So this is what the exterior panel looks like at this point. Now I want to bring over my large piece of foam there, and I want to position this panel on top of the foam. In the PDF, I specified cut that slightly smaller than your panel. I am cutting mine exactly the same size, so I will also make that update for you. So I'm going to be sewing my foam into my seams. If you do not think your machine can handle that, go ahead and cut your foam smaller and keep that out of the seams. So once you have your panel on your foam, go ahead and clip at those seams to ensure that they lay nice and flat for you, because we are going to stitch across there to create that accent stitching, which is also functional and is going to help attach this exterior panel to this foam so that it does not shift on us. So we are going to be running a row of stitching here along this vegan leather, and then one here along this base seam, one at the absolute base of that, and then one across the top here. Okay, so for all of these you can use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I like to just line the edge of my foot up right with the top of that leather and stitch nice and straight across here. Okay, so I have that first row of accent stitching in place, and it looks really good. And now I'm going to run that second row just across that seam here that attached the base of this. Like, and then I'm going to run just a 1/4 inch right across the very base, which actually will be the center of the base of the bag. And then a 1/4 inch right across the top here, and that's just going to hold that foam in place and keep anything from shifting. Okay, so now I have my second exterior panel assembled and securely attached to this foam. Now I want to go ahead and trim away the excess there. And the measurements that I gave you in the panel, in the pattern rather, did not take into account what would be consumed in the seam allowance. So you actually need a slightly smaller piece, but it would be difficult for me to know exactly how large that piece would be, since this is the first time I have ever made this bag. I actually designed it in my mind first and wrote the pattern, and it is part of my ongoing design masterclass. So that particular strategy of design works very well for me. If you are new to Sewspire, you may not know that I actually design all of my own bags. I rarely work with someone else's pattern. So if you're curious to know more about my design methodology, it's not too late to join us over on the Sewspire Patreon page, and you can participate in our design chats for AMC, Andrea's master class. We have a meeting this afternoon at 3 o'clock, one on Thursday at 3 o'clock, and then one on Thursday at 7 p.m. You're welcome to attend all of those, or just the ones that are convenient for you. I do record the 7 p.m. design collaboration, and you can always catch the replay of that if you are a Sewspire patron. All right, so now I have my 2 exterior panels crafted, and what I want to do is install my little handmade label that I purchased from Sallie Tomato, and that comes in a variety of finishes. I opted to go for the antique brass. All the hardware on this bag will be antique brass. And so I cut out a little 2 by 1 inch piece of the vegan leather there, and I poked holes in that, 1/2 inch from each edge at center, and that is going to accent that label. So I think that I will install this label on my front exterior panel, and I think I'm going to come down on that about 4 inches and then come in right at center. And so I'm going to mark that out and measure really well. And that works out to be about 8 inches on each side of that 2-inch accent panel. So I have my little holes there. And then I'm going to bring back over my press, and I will go ahead and punch the holes in the exterior fabric and in the foam. And I do have an unboxing video for the press if you are interested in knowing more about that and what you need. We are going to be working with that a lot more in my future tutorials. Okay, so now I'll take my little label and I'll position my accent fabric on top of those holes, and then I'll poke those brads that are on that label through all of the layers and turn that over to the back, and then the little panel that goes on the back fits on there, and I'll fold those brads inward, and that will hold my handmade label. And I can straighten that up just a bit, and that's really pretty. That's a nice touch on the exterior of this beautiful bag. Okay, so now the next step is to take those 2 panels and position them right sides facing. I have my second panel here, so I'm going to position those right sides facing, and I am going to make lining up the faux leather panels the priority for this. And then once I know those are nice and straight, then I will come in and finish clipping the sides and the base. So for this exterior assembly, we are going to be using the flat corner method to give the bag its step. So what we're going to need to do is stitch down the right hand side, the left hand side, and across the base. We are not going to be stitching in these notched corners at this time. And I am going to be using a generous 5/8 of an inch seam allowance for this. I will be trimming away the excess after I know that I have all the layers captured. Then I want to go in and verify that all the layers are captured in those seams. And then I'm going to come in and trim away that excess down to about 1/4 inch. Okay, everything looks good. All of my layers have been captured in that seam. Now I want to reach inside there and align that side seam with my base seam. And I want to try and keep that faux leather as smooth as possible in there, and I'm hoping nothing crinkles up when I stitch. Okay, and then once you are confident that you have that nice and smooth, you're going to stitch all the way across here, and you may be using more than 5/8 of an inch seam allowance in order to capture all of the layers. The goal here is to stitch across there 5 to 6 inches of depth. All right, so you are going to have to be the judge of that depending upon how your material behaved during the construction process. I think I am going to be able to get myself about 5 inches of depth across there. So let me get this good and flat. I do like to use that Sharpie to draw that stitch line. So I can keep that as straight as possible. So I'm going to go for 5 inches across there, which is probably is a good inch in. Before I trim that away, I'm going to peek inside of there and see what that looks like, and that is very pretty. Okay, so on the opposite side, I want to accomplish that same goal of giving this bag 5 inches of depth while keeping that side and base seam aligned and not encroaching upon the bag feet. So just keep that in mind, that you have those little bag feet in there too. Okay, so I have my little guide stitch line there. Inside and see how that looks, and it's a very nice. Okay, so once I'm confident that I have the layers captured in that, then I can go ahead and trim back the excess from that corner, and that is not perfect there with that aligned, but I think it's going to give us a really fun look on the exterior. So we are about to find out. You do want the actual depth to be even on both sides, which is why we measured that. And you can also fold it in half like that and do a quick little visual if you are unsure. So all of those raggedy edges get trimmed off anyways, and now I want to reach inside and carefully turn this around and see exactly what I ended up with. The foam adds a lot of stability to this project, as does the faux leather. Gorgeous. And I did a good job lining up the leather on that side. It's ever so slightly off on this side, but I can definitely live with that. And look how it stands on its own. The positioning was good for that label as well. So super happy with that base. I really like that look a lot, and I'm happy with the size of this as well. So for my actual, this is the prototype, right? I just completely designed it in my mind, wrote out the instructions, and had a vision. I am thrilled so far with the Autumn tote. So now what we want to do is take that top edge about an inch. We're going to be really generous with this fold so that that top edge of this bag has a lot of stability, and we're going to turn that over towards the inside about an inch. These large clips are fabulous for that. Once you get the sides turned in, then you can come across the front and work that. And this is like the moment, just for the record here, when I totally fell in love with this bag. Ooh, it's so nice. Okay, so now I am working that back edge there, getting that folded over. And here is the front, the base, sides. And it's not heavy at all. It just has a lot of stability from that foam. So the exterior is complete. Super happy with that. Now I want to show you how to craft this fun strap with the faux leather accent and the rivets. So again, all the measurements for this bag are in that first tutorial, last Tuesday's tutorial, which we'll link to below, in addition to the PDF tutorial which I have for this project as well. So we want to take these cuts of vegan leather and mark up a 1/2 inch at center on that accent fabric there, and then I'm just going to pre-punch my holes onto this. And these are the holes that the rivets are going to go through, and this pre-punching is going to serve as the guide on the strap. Okay, so I have my standard Sewspire strap here. For this strap I use the Pellon 808 or 809, and I want to run a row of stitching down that open edge and then the folded edge. I'm going to just be using a 1/4 inch top stitching for this, so my edge of my strap is aligned right at the edge of the presser foot. And then you're going to take that finished strap and decide which you would like for the interior and which for the exterior, and center your vegan leather accent on there, and it works out to be about 3 1/4 inch from each end of the strap there. So the leather does not span the whole strap, and that's because I wanted it to be just as an accent. So compare the two straps and make sure it's nice and even, and then you're going to want that leather centered on there. So once you get that centered on there, go ahead and put a clip on each end to hold it in place. And what you're going to do now is, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to stitch all the way around the edges of that vegan leather. And I found when it came time to pivot at the corners that I needed to back stitch a little bit in order to get that nice straight corner. So depending upon the nuances of your machine, you may want to keep that in mind as you're coming around the corners. Hopefully you can see what I mean. When I back stitch there, it gives me a nice corner to pivot and turn. When I did not back stitch, the thread kind of angled itself, and I didn't like that look. So if you're running into that problem, just back stitching a little bit for whatever reason. Keeps that nice and crisp corner, and that's what the underside of the strap looks like. So I have already pre-punched my vegan leather, so now I just can put this strap up and punch through the fabric there on the back side, and I'm going to repeat that on the opposite side. And then I'm working with the 8mm rivets here, and they are flat versus domed. And so you're going to have 2 posts and 2 caps, and that's the difference there. And so you'll have one for each side, and all you have to do if you have one of these presses is change out your attachments. And then put the post in the front and the cap on the back, and it just snaps right into place. That's very easy. And then position the rivet up on the press there. Make sure it's sitting nice and flush. And then you just press down, not too hard because you don't want to cut into the vegan leather there, but you'll know that it's installed, and it's actually really easy when you're using this press. And now I have my 2 wonderful accent straps ready. All right, so I want to bring back over this bag so you can get a feel for what it's going to look like with these handles on it. You see that? Oh my gosh, that's gonna be nice. Really pretty. And spacing wise, I think I like that look there. I'm going to give these handles a good press and try and soften up that interfacing just a little bit, and over time as I use the bag, of course the wear will soften those handles up a bit, but that is going to be a really nice addition to this bag. And then we will also be adding a tassel to that, so you can see how this faux leather is going to just be stunning with this orange fabric that I've selected for the exterior. So let me give you some approximate measurements on this in case you're wondering if this is a good bag for you. So across the base here, I am coming in at 11 inches, and then depth wise I was able to get 5 inches. And then height wise, we are at 13 3/4 of an inch there. So let me check on the PDF there, which I would have just been guessing on the measurements, and let you know how close I was and how much of a... Okay, so I was thinking 16 inches tall, not even close. So I'm definitely going to adjust that. This bag is for sure 13 3/4 inches tall. So let me edit that. And then it worked out to be 5 inches deep. And again, across the base, we were coming in at 11 inches. I did get that part correct. And then across the top here, I said it would be 16 inches, and it is. So I got that right. but I was way off on the height, but it is definitely a nice proportions there. And I am really excited to sew the interior of this bag with you next week. I have a gorgeous floral picked out for the interior. I'll give you a peek at that. And we are going to be incorporating a recessed zipper closure, and that's what my tassel is going to attach to. I'll be working with the zipper by the yard if you're curious how that goes. And then I am also going to have a swivel key fob that's going to have some rivet accents on that as well. So again, it's not too late. If you'd like to join my masterclass AMC, hop on over to the Sewspire Patreon page and you can get signed up for that today and jump on our calls this week. We have just started sewing, so your timing is absolutely perfect. Please check the notes for everything you'll need to participate in this sewing project. As always, I thank you for joining me, and until we meet again, the creative genius in me will be celebrating the creative genius in you. I hope you all have an awesome week and that you will join me Friday at noon to celebrate 6 years of Sewspire. Love to all of you. I'll see you then.